Snow fell gently over St. Petersburg that morning, thin, silent flakes brushing the cobblestones like forgotten memories. The air was sharp, the kind that bites through gloves and reminds you how alone a big city can make you feel. Anastasia adjusted her scarf and walked faster. Her breath turned to mist as she crossed the frozen bridge, the same route she took every day to the architecture firm where she worked. Tall, gray buildings surrounded her like quiet guards. Beautiful, but cold. Everything in Russia looked beautiful, she thought, but beauty without warmth can freeze the heart. Inside her office, computers hummed and colleagues spoke in low voices. Everyone looked busy, important, tired. Anastasia's designs were praised. Her boss often said she had a perfect eye. Yet every compliment sounded hollow. Each day felt like repetition. The same streets, same silence, same emptiness hidden behind polite smiles. That night, she sat alone in her apartment. A single lamp glowed over a cup of tea gone cold. Outside, the snow fell harder. She opened her laptop, not for work this time, just to escape. Scrolling mindlessly, she stumbled upon a random video. Its thumbnail showed a family laughing around a wooden table, sunlight spilling through a window of bamboo slats. The title read, "A Simple Life in the Philippines." Curious, she clicked. What she saw felt almost unreal. Children playing barefoot in the rain, an old woman waving from her porch, neighbors sharing food as if they were one family. The camera followed a Filipino man smiling as he handed a plate of rice to a stranger. No filters, no luxury, no noise, just genuine happiness. Anastasia leaned closer. She could almost feel the warmth through the screen, the kind of warmth that had been missing from her life for years. When the video ended, she whispered to herself, "They have so little, and yet they seem to have everything." She spent hours watching more. Stories of kindness, laughter, people helping strangers on flooded streets, men giving up their seats for elders, families eating together on banana leaves. Something inside her stirred. That night, she couldn't sleep. The snow outside no longer felt peaceful, it felt suffocating. For the first time she realized she wasn't just tired of the cold weather. She was tired of the cold inside her life. The next morning, she made a decision. A quiet, brave, unreasonable decision. She opened a travel website, typed Manila, and stared at the pictures. Blue skies, palm trees, jeepneys bursting with color, people smiling at strangers. She didn't know anyone there, didn't speak the language, didn't even like hot weather, but something about that place called to her soul. Without overthinking, she clicked book flight, one-way ticket. Her friends thought she'd lost her mind. "Why the Philippines? It's chaotic, poor, far," they said. She smiled. "Maybe that's why I need to go." The day of her flight, the airport smelled of coffee and jet fuel. Outside, the snowstorm roared, as if the city itself was begging her to stay. She looked out the glass, watching flakes crash against the window, her old life slowly disappearing behind her reflection. When the plane took off, she closed her eyes. She didn't know what awaited her. All she knew was that she was leaving behind the cold, to search for something warm, not just in weather, but in people. Somewhere far beyond the clouds, sunlight was waiting, and for the first time in a long time, Anastasia allowed herself to hope. The airplane doors opened, and a rush of warm air brushed Anastasia's face. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen in disbelief. Back home, everything smelled like iron and snow, but here, the air carried something different, the scent of mango, sea salt, and life. As she walked through the terminal, she noticed it immediately. Smiles, not polite ones, not forced, real smiles. The airport guard, the woman at immigration, even the janitor sweeping the floor, all of them smiled like they meant it. Outside the doors, chaos exploded, the sound of car horns, laughter, street vendors calling out in a rhythm she didn't understand. Jeepneys painted in wild colors rolled by like moving art. The heat wrapped around her like a blanket. It should have been overwhelming, but strangely, it felt comforting. A young taxi driver approached her. "Ma'am, taxi?" he asked, with a grin too genuine to refuse. She nodded, still lost in the swirl of colors and sounds. As the car rolled through the city, Anastasia pressed her forehead against the glass. Billboards, palm trees, old churches, children chasing each other barefoot. It was messy, noisy, alive. At a stoplight, she saw a group of street kids sharing a single ice cream. One licked it, then passed it to another. They laughed like it was the happiest moment of their lives. Something inside her chest softened. The driver noticed her silence. "First time in the Philippines, ma'am?" "Yes," she said softly. "First time anywhere like this." He chuckled. "Welcome, Po. You come from cold country, no? Here, only heart is cold if you forget to smile." She laughed, the first real laugh she'd had in months. When they reached her small rented apartment in Quezon City, the driver helped her carry her bags up 3 flights of narrow stairs. She tried to pay him extra, but he shook his head. "No need, ma'am. You are guest in my country. Welcome." And with that, he left, waving, smiling, disappearing into traffic. That night, the city outside never slept. Dogs barked, tricycles buzzed, karaoke echoed from a nearby house. Anastasia lay in bed listening to it all. It wasn't peaceful like the quiet of Russia, but it was alive, human, warm. At 2 a.m., the power went out. The fan stopped, lights blinked off. In the silence she heard voices outside her window, neighbors laughing, children giggling. Someone lit candles in the hallway. Then came a soft knock at her door. A middle-aged woman stood there, holding a small candle and a plate of food. "Hi, new neighbor, yes?" she said, with a bright smile. "Brown out long. Don't worry. You hungry?" Anastasia blinked, surprised. "Oh, I'm fine, thank you." But the woman placed the plate in her hands anyway. "Eat. Adobo. Welcome to the Philippines." She walked away before Anastasia could even thank her. In that flickering candlelight, Anastasia sat on the floor and took her first bite. Soy sauce, garlic, vinegar, simple, perfect. Outside, the night hummed with voices and laughter, people singing even without electricity. For the first time, Anastasia felt something she hadn't felt in years, not safety, not success, but belonging. She looked out the window at the candlelit faces of strangers helping each other, sharing food, laughing in the dark, and she whispered to herself, how can people with so little give so much? The power came back an hour later, but even when the lights returned, Anastasia kept the candle burning, because in that moment, she understood sometimes light doesn't come from electricity, it comes from people. Morning sunlight spilled through the window, painting the walls gold. Anastasia woke to the sound of roosters, laughter, and someone sweeping outside. It wasn't the sound of traffic or alarms, it was life waking up. She stepped out onto the small balcony. Down below, the narrow street was already alive. A man in a faded blue shirt was pushing a cart of pan de sal, calling softly, "Fresh bread! Fresh bread!" Children ran beside him, giggling as the smell of warm bread filled the air. An old woman waved from across the street. "Good morning, ma'am." "Cape?" she offered, lifting a cup of coffee. Anastasia smiled and nodded, her heart swelling with a quiet kind of happiness. Later that day, she walked to the market. The heat was heavy, the air thick with the smell of grilled fish, ripe fruit, and gasoline. Vendors shouted prices, tricycles buzzed like bees, and yet, somehow, it all moved in harmony. As she crossed the street, a jeepney came speeding around the corner. Anastasia froze. Before she could react, a man reached out and gently pulled her back by the arm. "Careful, Po, miss," he said. His voice was soft, respectful. Po, that small word she'd heard so often already, a sign of respect in every sentence. He smiled shyly, his shirt damp with sweat. "You okay?" "Yes, thank you," she said, still shaken. He nodded, laughed awkwardly, and walked away. No flirting, no ego, just kindness. That simple act stayed in her mind all day. Back home in Russia, men rarely smiled, and kindness was often mistaken for weakness. But here, there was something different. Strength wrapped in gentleness. As she sat on a bench near a sari store, she watched another man stop his motorbike to help an old woman carry groceries across the street. No one filmed it. No one clapped. It was just normal. A little later, the sky turned gray. Thunder rolled, and within minutes, rain came pouring down, the kind that felt like heaven opening. People rushed for shelter, laughing, shouting. Anastasia ducked under a small tin roof beside a tricycle driver who was trying to keep his seat dry. He looked at her, smiling through the rain. "Ma'am, you okay? Not used to rain like this, no?" She shook her head, laughing. "I think, Russia rain never this warm." He laughed too, teeth shining in the dim light. "Here, rain is gift, free shower from sky." He took off his jacket and held it over her shoulders. She protested, but he insisted. "No worry, I dry fast. You new here, must take care." She looked at him, soaked, smiling, completely sincere. Something deep inside her chest cracked open. When the rain stopped, the driver helped her find her way home. Before he left, he said something that stayed in her heart. "Ma'am, in life, always give more kindness than you take. That's how we live happy, even if poor." That night, Anastasia sat by the window again. The candle from the night before still stood there, melted halfway down. She thought of the man who saved her from the jeepney, the old woman offering coffee, the tricycle driver in the rain. None of them knew her name, yet each one treated her like family. She wrote in her journal, "Kindness here is not an act. It is air. Everyone breathes it." The next morning she woke with a strange lightness in her chest, as if the cold she'd carried from Russia had started to melt, and for the first time in years, Anastasia didn't feel like a visitor in someone else's world. She felt home. Kindness in the Philippines wasn't just for tourists, it was a way of life. A young man paused his basketball game to check if she was okay in the heat. Men offered seats on buses, stepped aside on sidewalks, and shared food without fanfare. Caught in a downpour, a construction worker handed her his only jacket, asking nothing in return. Taxi drivers went out of their way to help, neighbors shared home-cooked meals. These small acts slowly healed Anastasia, showing her a new kind of strength rooted in empathy. In these moments she realized kindness could be monumental. The construction worker's jacket was a turning point for Anastasia. In Russia, generosity often came with strings attached. Here, it was pure and selfless. The act forced her to confront her own cynicism and emotional walls. She realized strength could mean vulnerability and open-heartedness. That night, she cried, not from sadness, but from release. The kindness of strangers had pierced her defenses. The jacket became a symbol, an invitation to trust and believe in the goodness of people. Anastasia's journey was